Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. We caught up earlier today with Brad Langille, who's the CEO of GoGold Silver and Gold. We talked to Brad about market conditions at the moment for precious metals, silver specifically, and where he thinks that's going. Plus, they've been drilling consistently and will do 10,000 meters per month for the rest of this year. But what else can we expect to see from him? If you want our thoughts and opinions on his answers, the conversation, the topics discussed, and indeed the company itself, you can find that at cruxinvestor.com/club. We can also find detailed company reports and analysis. There are summaries of other interviews that we've done to save you some time, because I know you're busy. We've also got training courses on there to help you with your diligence process, plus commentary from experts from all around the world on a variety of companies and commodities. Truly fascinating stuff, I guarantee you. And also there's a thriving community of investors on there sharing their thoughts and ideas with each other in a nice, civilized and friendly way. And if that interests you, and I hope it does, you can join them at cruxinvestor.com/club. And of course, we'd love your feedback too. So do give us a like. It would be much appreciated. If you comments below, we'll get back to absolutely everyone. And if you want to see precisely what we talked about today, do take a look in the description below. Hey, Brad, how are you, sir?
Good, Matt. How are you this morning?
Not too bad, not too bad. You're back from your travels, I hear.
I am. I'm here in quarantine.
You made it.
Yes.
Yeah, I hear they're changing the rules for traveling. So getting back and forth to Mexico must be a little bit more difficult now.
It is. Of course, we're following all the rules around quarantine and being safe with COVID. But it makes it a little harder to travel. So I'm spending some longer stints in Mexico. And of course, I can do a lot of my CEO duties from there and do a lot of my technical duties, job there too.
Well, so yeah. Thanks for the catch up, and let's do a 1 minute customary overview of the business, because I've got some questions around these drill results, these relentless drill results we keep seeing. So maybe start off with that 1 minute overview, and I'll pick it up from there.
Yeah, we've been very, very focused, as you know, on Los Ricos North, and at least just as a little aside to that, we haven't forgotten about Los Ricos South. That is just plowing along towards pre-feasibility, and we may even be there by the end of the year. So that's moving quickly. So a little quiet in the background, but we're doing all that additional engineering. But it's Los Ricos North that's it's grabbing the limelight, not just for our shareholders. Matt, we're getting a lot of new people taking notice here, because we're hitting some pretty amazing stuff up there, and we always thought that was a big system. And it's really, for us, it's delivering, and it's even surprising us. And we thought it was big. Yeah. So it's really showing.
You've said to me in the past, Brad, that this is one of the best projects you've worked on in 20 years. Okay, so
definitely.
I took notice of that, and I think the market took notice of that, because the numbers coming out of Los Ricos South were good. You got yourself a mine there. Mm-hmm. I was intrigued as to what you were going to be able to do in Los Ricos North. Okay, you've got the money, you've been drilling. Do you feel, though, it's almost as an expectation that of course you're going to deliver it, and the market's just got a little bit blasé? Because looking at the share price, it's kind of settled a bit. What do you put that down to? Is it a silver price? Is it what you're doing? Is it a lack of story? What's your interpretation?
Well, we all do better in the market when we have the commodity price as a tailwind. But we've held in there pretty well when the commodity prices come off, because this thing is really delivering up some big results here. And it's, you think of the silver space and you think of the assets out there, and, you have some narrower vein, high grade stuff. There's lots of that in Mexico. And, that makes some news, that big kind of kilos number. And we have those big kilos numbers, we get into the 1, 2, and 3 kilos, but what we have are the big, wide bulk zones. And that's where you can add up ounces, good high margin ounces. I'm not talking about, this super low grade stuff. That's not what we're after. We're after good margin ounces, but in bulk, where we see 50-meter wide zones. And thinking back to Los Ricos South, which is a great deposit, and we'll probably get bigger in the future as we go back to drilling for resources there. But right now we're focused on what's right in front of us, very obvious. And when you start drilling 50 meters at hundreds of grams, you can add up ounces awful fast, and that's what we're doing.
Okay, You said a lot there. I'm going to come back to you on some of that if I may. So
Yep.
can we just get your view of what's happening out there, the macro view? So obviously precious metals has come off a little bit. What are you seeing out there in terms of you've been at this a while, you've been in silver, precious metals a long time. Is this a surprise, this fall?
No, it's not really a surprise. I mean, it's nothing is going to go straight up. It's going to go up. It's going to plateau. It's going to pull back, and then there will be reinvigoration, and the institutions come back in and they drive it. And really, retail, but also the institutions are a big driver of the commodity price. I see silver has a bit of a new life here, though, with the whole green kind of revolution and the silver panels and electrification of vehicles. That takes a lot of silver, not just battery metals, but it takes a lot of silver as well. And so there's kind of a bit of a reinvigoration into silver, and I think it probably is going to outperform gold, for that reason. And it hasn't pulled back as much as gold has in this last pullback here. I mean, we're doing great at, I see it pull back to $26. And I think last quarter we sold at $24. And at Mindsight, we had 6.7 million US in free cash flow. And we're just chugging along at the same amount of ounces. So we'll probably sell at a higher price this quarter and produce more cash flow. So it's good for us. We're doing good.
I know you're doing good. You're doing very good. Looking at what you've done with the share price and the growth last year, I think most your shareholders are going to be very happy. But you're going to kind of keep the process moving. So again, just remind me, what is it you're trying to do here? Because there's a lot of silver stories out there, and they're all shouting from the rooftops about what they're going to be able to do, and their shareholders, I suspect, are very, very happy too, because silver's done what it's done, and that's helped even the not so good companies stand out. So what is it that you're trying to build here?
If you think about promoting a stock, and I want to say that we're about marketing a stock and telling the world what we're accomplishing, but we're not so much, our business is not focused on, we got to promote our stock, we got to get our stock price up. We believe that we have the asset and we're spending the money on it. And you can see we have a strong balance sheet. And then we're going to tell that story about the great results we're getting. From the rooftop, shouting out that we have 1 kilo, 2 kilos. That's great on a narrow vein. To me, and having built 3 mines and major refurbishing a 4th, I understand that, look, if we want to focus on a high cutoff grade, we'll be talking every week about the kilos, but we'd be forgetting about the real story here. The kilos are a small portion within our 50-meter wide hundreds of grams. That's what's more important. It's volume times grade, times good margin grade that builds ounces real fast and builds lots of ounces. And this asset, I believe, and my team believes, this is one of the unique ones. This is one of the outliers. I mean outliers as in this is becoming one of the real important silver assets in the silver space. And people are starting to notice that. They're starting to say, wait a minute, this is not just your small mine or even your medium mine and you're finding some ounces here. This is a district scale, almost camp scale, big silver system. And it's really showing that on the drill bit.
But help me understand that a little bit more. Let's dig down a bit there, because again, I'm kind of new to silver in the last year. Okay, I haven't really not been something that I've looked at in great depth, and I've been learning about the different types of projects that are out there. Some of them are huge market caps with chasing narrow, high grade veins, and they get the headlines. They're very attractive. People get quite excited, but are those necessarily any better than a low grade bulk project? I mean, what's the kind of makeup of the perfect resource or mine?
Yeah, and everything has its advantages and disadvantages. When you're talking narrow vein, high grade, the disadvantages takes a lot of development to get those tons. And and it's all a volume, length times width, times depth, and then times the grade. When you're talking, and we have those narrow widths of kilos, but they're within a wider zone of very good grade, and length times width times depth times that grade adds up ounces a lot quicker. And then, as far as putting things eventually into production, there are, in some cases, there's less, I guess it's quicker. I've done both. I've done, big open pits and underground mines. And I can tell you that the open pits are a little bit easier, to get there and get that critical mass going. So, as good as some of the high grade underground deposits are, and they're headline grabbing, the kilos. And look, we put lots of kilos in our headlines, but you also notice that big wide width. And I think that's what's going to shine, and that's what's going to, in 2021, that's where GoGold is going to jump out in front and jump out in front of the others, because people are going to see, wow, how did they get these many ounces this fast? And the other thing, Matt, is at the end of the day, it's all about the net asset value of the asset, and that is how much money can you make per ounce times how many ounces are you producing, and how much capital do you have deployed and paying back that capital. And that gives you that number, like in Los Ricos South, $295 million US of net present value, 5% discount after tax, $21 and $15.50 gold. And we got there in 22 months. Imagine what we're going to do in Los Ricos North.
Yes.
Because it's bigger.
Well, yeah, and I'll come on to that one in a second, but I just want to start on the kind of macro thing at the moment. And again, it's a question sent in actually quite kindly by one of our subscribers. Do you think we are going to see more M&A activity in this space? Because we've talked about the different qualities of companies that are out there, and perhaps some which may struggle on their own and may need and benefit from coming into another portfolio. Because there hasn't been anything that significant. And the example given here was Santa Elena back in 2015, and we've struggled to really talk about anything meaningful since. So are we due a consolidation?
Yeah, there hasn't been much, has there? And if you think about the last boom, there are some majors really got burnt on some acquisitions, right? So maybe they're still a little shy. But what they haven't been doing, the majors, is they haven't been doing a whole bunch of exploration. And they keep on mining. So there is going to be a need at some point for, the majors to say, hey, we got to fill the pipeline again. And, we've got to look for those assets that can move the dial for us. You're going to need the big ones. You're going to need the big ounces ones. And especially in the silver space, I mean, there's not a lot of those. You can probably count them on one or two hands, those assets that could move the dial for some of the bigger precious metals producers.
Do you know what?
So I think it's coming, but it's maybe hasn't caught on fire yet, but it's coming.
Yeah, it feels like because again, I think when it comes back to companies of a certain quality or lack thereof, it's harder to keep turning that dial. At some point, the variables are available to them stop working, and they're going to have to maybe look to M&A activity just to kind of keep the asset alive. I want to talk to you about the share price, because the share price looks like it's starting. I kind of mentioned it earlier, and I also mentioned to you maybe perhaps people just getting a little bit used to you putting out these results, right?
Yeah.
But the results are really good. It's almost like it's too easy in a way. And I don't mean that. I know mining's tough, right? So I don't mean to belittle it, but you keep hitting really, really solid grades. But the market is not paying attention as much as they did. Do you feel that's a fair statement?
I think it's a fair statement. I think a lot of it has to do with the tailwind is not blowing quite as strong right now in the commodity price. That's for everybody. But GoGold's hung in pretty well compared to some of our peers. The other thing that I see, and if you look at our chart, and we got a pretty chart there, and it's driven by the asset, right? And but you see that we reach a plateau and then we do consolidation, then all of a sudden it's like a light switch. Everybody says, wow, they reached the next milestone here. We all going to start buying right now. And then does the next jump. And that's the thing. You got to be there. You got to be there in the stock. And because the next one will come. And really it's going to be, I don't think we've exhausted people's being quite impressed by these new zones we're finding. Casados and El Arito those were the first drill holes that ever went into those zones. And we're coming up with 50 meters and yes, the narrow kilos and the 50 meters of the hundreds of grams. And those kind of things are still people saying, wow, that's neat. New zone, another new zone. And we'll have more of that. But I think that people then are going to say, okay, you guys are getting a little closer to getting that resource estimate. And is it going to be, how many tens of millions or how many hundreds of millions of ounces could that be? And, that exploration potential is there. And we keep on noting that length times width times depth, that gives you the volume of mineralized material and the holes that you're seeing coming out every week. Well, that's the final thing to multiply that by. And that's how we get the ounces. So it's coming, but you're right. People want to know, it's always, what have you done for me lately? That was good, but what's next? And its resources are coming and more discoveries are coming.
Right. But it's resources good. People they look at that as a mechanism by which
they can quantify.
Well, they can also compare you, right? That's an easy mechanism, right? You keep knocking out these high, these are really good grades you're getting in. It's almost like every hole always hits. It always hits, which is fantastic. But it's kind of like, okay, we get it. You've got it. It's massive. But give me a resource. I can compare you against your peers. Great.
Yeah.
Economics at some point is going to be good. But also events like, and again, questions sent in, how you treat different parts of this, because Los Ricos South is slowly becoming the poor cousin here compared to Los Ricos North because the grades are so good. But it is in itself going to be a mine. It can be a mine. So are you going to maybe accelerate something there, or have you kind of almost forgotten it, in which case it's understandable. Perhaps other people are forgetting it too. I mean, how do you look at it?
Yeah, no, we haven't forgot it at all. There's a team working on it. There's a team working on a pre-feasibility study right now, and it's moving ahead quickly. And we will be doing some more drilling down there as well. And some of the drilling will be more about geotechnical and more metallurgy and things like that. And some of the drilling as over the next coming months will also be about more resources. But it's on a parallel track. It's a little quiet down there, but the things are happening. And we will make more reports to the market as we go along here about, hey, here's our pre-feasibility level metallurgy. And the pre-feasibility study we're hoping before the end of the year we'll have that. So it's moving. It's not forgotten. It's moving along. But you're right. The North has stolen the limelight. And you mentioned something, people will be able to compare a resource in the North when it comes out to our peers. They'll also be able to use Los Ricos South as a benchmark. They'll be able to say, hey, we have had 83 million ounces of resource down there. Sorry, 63 million M&I and 20 million of inferred. But we had that down there. They put the economics around it, and that ended up being $295 million of net present value US. Now, we're going to drill off a whole bunch up here in the North, and I'm not saying they're exactly comparable. In fact, in the North might have a lower strip ratio, but they're going to be able to say, wait now, you've got this much in the North, that much in the South as a benchmark was worth that. Wow. This thing is really starting to become what we think, which is an asset in the silver space that's going to be the outlier. That's going to be one of those potentially big ones.
But you've got a track record of building and selling projects. Okay, that's your
Yep.
track record, and I'm trying to work
Right.
out as an investor. Do I look at that as a clue as to how you might treat Los Ricos South, i.e., you might use as a monetizing event and say, well, you know what, I can get a whole bunch of cash for that. It's pretty soon. Okay, I'm soon going to present a PFS. Or are you saying I'm trying to build something of real scale, and Los Ricos North and Los Ricos South are one of the same project for us, and we're building something that is truly of world scale and quality? Where's your head in terms of your optionality? Or are you going to give me that CEO quick shuffle of we're going to retain our optionality? Where's your head?
I'm going to say all of the above. What I mean of all of the above is I mean that I whatever makes the most money for the shareholders. We're not married to anything, but we also know that, and yes, we've bought and sold lots of properties and found lots of ounces, but we also built 3 mines, and we really made sure we refurbished a 4th, so we can do it. And you got to be, you got to be able to do it. You have to demonstrate to the market, to peers, that you will do it, and that's what we're doing right now. I mean, this thing will be big enough that it is getting interest, but the way that it becomes more valuable is to keep on moving at those steps towards production, because what those steps do is they take the risk out. And that's if there was a potential, and that's an if the potential buyer, they want to buy something that's been de-risked, and they're willing to pay more. In a lot of cases, people, especially in the larger companies, are willing to pay more for less risk than trying to look like jumping in there fast and getting all the increase in value. Hey, there's less danger for them, and it's been shown in the last boom. There were some, buys and M&A in the last precious metals boom that cost a few CEOs their jobs, right? So de-risking things, definitely, if there is M&A in the future, is helpful to make that happen. But Matt, we're fully capable of building this, no question at all.
I get that. I do understand that, your track record. Let's talk about. I'll finish up because I know you've got places to be. I'll finish off with this, which is we've talked about people wanting to sort of see moments where they can help. You can help them analyze where you're at the moment. Okay, resources one. We've talked in the past of putting something out sort of October-ish sort of timeline, right? So is that the next moment we should be looking for? Because that seems like a ways out at the moment. What are the other moments that you think you can, or stories that you can bring into the market between now and then?
Yeah, for sure we can bring a lot of discovery. And I think that although we won't have the resource out yet, with the sheer amount of intercepts and the amount of new discovery and the amount of zones, and we keep on saying, hey, this zone for these reasons has the exploration potential by itself to be as big as Los Ricos South exploration potential. But we have multiples of these. It starts to become pretty clear that we're off the opinion that this is much bigger than Los Ricos South multiples. That's one thing, but you're right. It takes time, September, October, to get to that first resource. But, we're looking at things and we're saying, hey, in Los Ricos South, that was M&I, measured and indicated, the highest level kind of a certainty, and then some inferred. We had 63 million ounces of measured and indicated and only 20 million ounces of inferred. We'll see how it plays out here, but maybe what we should do is say at some point, let's do a lot of indicated, inferred in that first resource, and, maybe we can get out there quicker. And then we're just going to use the 43-101 as a tool to summarize. Maybe it's every 6 months. Summarize that massive amount of drilling we're doing. 100,000 meters over 12 months. That's a big drill program. And we use it as a tool to summarize. So, we put out a resource and we say, hey, this is not the resource for Los Ricos North. This is the first one. And watch now for the second one and the next one and the next one. So that's a little bit around our thinking, and we'll develop that some more as we go ahead here in the coming next 60 days. Could we get to something? Because we're seeing it, like as a technical team, obviously we build our own models in-house all the time, and we allow ourselves to take a long look on inferred, and because I want to know, especially when I'm talking to your audience, and I want to know when I'm talking to institutions, I want to have in my head a sense of how big this thing is. I'm not going out there to say this thing is big, 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 and then be embarrassed if it's not. I have a pretty good idea in my head how big it can be. Obviously, we have to do the drilling, but we'd like to get that point, and maybe there's an earlier version of a resource that we can get out there that has more inferred in it, and get that point out to the audience. That
so I said I'd ask the last question, but I promise this is the last one. Is, do you think you've got something where you could genuinely claim world scale, type project? You can say this is a world-class project with scale, okay? Or is it just another silver company trying to find its way and just hang on in there? Because there's a lot of companies which talk the language, use the vocabulary of we've got something big, we've got something world class here, and we look at these things and just go, it's nothing compared to the big boys, and it's going to be a long road to kind of even get anywhere near that, because again the asset just isn't there. They haven't got the money to do it. You've got the money to do it, but are you genuinely seeing something there which says, you know what, I'll be proud to stand behind this?
Everybody, you're right. CEO, you want to throw in all the caveats and everything, and we do. There's lots of risk in exploration, that's for sure. This, Matt, is the biggest thing I've ever had, and I feel very comfortable saying that. This is becoming one of the real important assets in the silver space. And it's going to jump out in front. And I'll make a prediction now that, this is going to be one of the assets that people talk about in this precious metals boom as being one of the big discoveries. That's how I feel about it. That's how my team feels about it. This is not just another silver asset. This is a real leading silver asset. And it's going to be important for GoGold to transform GoGold into something much, much bigger, much that next mid-tier or beyond in the silver space, or it's going to be something that another company has to have, a big company has to have, because it is becoming one of the real important. I don't want to use the word the world class. I know it is world class, but I know everybody throws that out in every project, that they throw the third drill hole into. But this is really big in the silver space.
Okay.
And I know it, and people are going to know it soon.
Well, that's what we're looking for, okay? Because we'd followed you last year. It was just extraordinary growth. I mean, amazing work done for the shareholders there. You're in a position to, continue delivering some great grades and results. And I just hope that you're capable of showing the scale, the volume of metal contained in the ground going forward, and deliver something which is, I'll use the phrase for you, world class, genuinely world class.
Yeah, we're on our way to doing that. Yeah, we're on our way to doing that, and maybe sooner than later. I think it will be the message of 2021.
Beautiful. Okay, well, thanks for staying in touch and picking up the phone to us every time. I know you're a bit busy. I look forward to speaking to you again soon, sir.
Great, thank you, and thanks to your audience for the interest.